Every year I meet up with an old friend from high school, and he lives on the other side of the country. We get together and we have a kind of an epic night of video gaming, have a couple drinks, go out to dinner, and so forth. And I just met up with him a couple days ago, and he said, why don't you do a Q&A episode? He doesn't really follow everything I do on the channel, but he watches a few things, and he says, I'm typically better responding to questions than just rambling, in his opinion. So I figured, why not do that? He asked me we had some interesting discussions. He asked me a few questions that I thought were worthy of addressing. Plus, I've gotten some questions from viewers over the last 3 months. I've been kind of busy, so I figured I'd pull some of those out and answer them here on the show. And who knows, if this is a useful format, I may continue with it. So his question to me, which was actually a criticism, he had seen the video I did on Zelda not being a great game. And he hasn't played it yet because he doesn't yet have a Switch. But he asked me, at what point would I get a Switch? Since I'm not interested in playing Zelda again, what would it take for Nintendo to come out with on the system for me to pick it up? And I think there's a simple answer to that. I said, hey, you know what? If it shows up at my local Costco, I got a couple Costco gift cards, so I would buy it there just because it would be cheaper. But ultimately, I'm looking for 3 good games to play on the Nintendo Switch. 3 games that really aren't remakes or rehashes of what we have on the Nintendo Wii. That are unique original games, and, it can't be Zelda. I've put my time into Zelda on the Wii U. I was happy with it. It's not to say that 3-4 years from now I won't have nostalgia to go back to it, at which point I would get it on the Switch. Obviously, game 1 would be Super Mario Odyssey. I think that looks tremendous, and I'm looking forward to playing it. But as I look at the release schedule, the Kirby game, the Yoshi game, those don't really do it for me at this point. Bayonetta, they're re-releasing that. I just need some original Nintendo games or original third-party games, and I'm not seeing a lot of that. When they do that, get a Pokemon game. I was never a big Pokemon fan back in the day, but as you know, if you've been following the channel, I find it relatively relaxing to play. And then something out of the blue. Metroid Prime 4 would obviously be another one. I don't know if that's coming out in 2018. I get the sense that since the trailer was just the logo and Metroid Prime, we may have to wait some more time. But yeah, one or the other. 3 good games come out. I'll pay full price, or it just shows up in my local store and I can get it with some of these gift cards and not have to pay retail for it. The next question, and this was more of a criticism I got from a couple people on my Gran Turismo series of videos. I was criticizing GT Sport, and they said, well, now that there is a career mode in GT Sport, you need to go back and revise these videos. And I haven't done that, but those people are right. I think the campaign mode, as they call it in GT Sport, adds a little something to the game. It certainly gave me an incentive after my initial kind of period of elation with the game, and then I put it away for a couple months. It's given me an opportunity to go back. It's not as good as what we had in GT6 and GT5. It is essentially a reconfiguration of just challenges, but now they are full races and you have the cups. It's not so much about placing and earning cars through the trophies that you get. I mean, as far as I can tell, having golded a couple of the challenges, I didn't really get anything special. It's still all about mileage, getting your mileage points, doing your daily workout, and then getting a car through the slot machine. And sometimes you get a great car, sometimes you don't. But it's definitely now a game that I can say it is certainly worth picking up if you are a fan. If you want the tech demo HDR aspect of GT Sport, but you want some kind of offline progression, it's now at a point where it can be recommended for that purpose, but I would still caution people who think this is another, typical Gran Turismo game. It's not. They're still pushing the online stuff hard. It's just now you have more to do, and that is welcome. I don't really stream a lot, but on my Twitch channel, there is a viewer who always comes on. Goes by the name of Meow Mix. And, I stream maybe 4 or 5 times a year. I've been doing it a little bit more frequently now just because with the bad weather, and I just have had time on my hands on the weekend. So I've come on, and this guy's a great conversationalist, asks a lot of questions. But he asked me one question that I thought was interesting to pursue, and that is, what is my take on Fire Pro now that it's out? Am I still playing it, and so forth? So I am not playing Fire Pro at the moment. Fire Pro is still a wonderful game. I'm still generally enthusiastic about it. But I stopped simply because it was just getting tedious to load up match by match the matches that I wanted to play. The system is clunky. It hasn't improved as far as I can tell now that it's coming out. It's been quote-unquote officially released. What I ultimately wanted to do, and I explained this on the stream, is have a mode where I can just set up a pay-per-view card, and the game would progress from one match to the other. It just saves a lot of time. It's more fun, I think, that way. And of course, as I said, hey, let me build out a whole tournament and play every match of the tournament rather than taking, one wrestler through it. Well, it seems that at least on the first count, Spike Chunsoft has answered the call, and they are coming out with a promoter mode, I believe it's called. And the problem here is that it is going to be DLC. And I was a little upset by that. This is a feature that should have been in the game for a long, long time, and you'd think with an upgrade, a new version of the game, that would have been included. It hasn't been stated whether that's going to be paid DLC or not. I suspect it will be paid DLC, and it's not to say that I won't buy it, but as a backer of this game, as an early adopter, I kind of feel like that should be included. Now, if they want to give us new arenas, if they want to give us new music, if they want to give us new costumes, that's fine. But the idea that a pretty basic mode is going to be locked behind a paywall, I think, is upsetting. But it's not the sort of thing where I'm going to go crazy and say, don't buy this game. I still think it's a very good game. I will give them credit, however, for another DLC concept that they had. And that is, they are coming out with DLC that supports wrestlers. So if you're not aware, the New Japan, Pride, and this guy's been in some other leagues. Yoshihiro Takayama is a big name in the late 90s, early 2000s scene over there. He had an accident in the ring maybe 3-4 months ago and was paralyzed. So GT Sport, the folks over at Fire Pro did, I think, like a special move set for him. They released a finisher and maybe a taunt or something like that, and they set it at $2 or $3, and if you bought it, all the proceeds would go to this wrestler's family. And I think that's positive DLC. That's a DLC where, will be more than happy to pay that to support wrestlers. Lord knows that they need it. So many of these guys are sick, injured, or in otherwise desperate situations. So I would like to see them continue with that. Obviously, they're not making money off of that, but I think that's a kind of goodwill gesture that, at least for me, makes it more probable that I'll pick up some other stuff that they put out. One of the videos that I put out a while ago that's actually done pretty well by this channel's standards is my Monitor Mayhem video. And in that video, I talked about how I've purchased a number of different monitors over the years, and I just haven't been satisfied. And I go on to kind of criticize the monitor industry for a lack of innovation and quality control. Well, a number of people, many people have come on since then. The video is probably 2 years old or a year and a half old, and they said, well, what did you wind up buying? What did you purchase? And in some cases I've answered, and recently I haven't. So for the record, I purchased the Dell 27-inch G-Sync gaming monitor. The model number on that is S2716DG. And I think it's a couple of years old now, but I think it's still the best deal in gaming monitors. Yes, it's a TN panel. Yes, the colors are absolutely awful out of the box. You have to tweak it. The settings are fairly widely available online. Just Google it, that model number plus colors, and you'll get the proper calibration. But once you do that, it's fairly satisfying from an image quality standpoint. But 144 hertz, G-Sync, excellent speed. Right now, I was actually talking to my buddy about this as well. It's going for about $470. I got it for $500. Over the holiday season, it was actually in the $600 range, at least on the Dell site. So if you can get it for under $500, I think it is clearly the best monitor. There's no reason to spend $600 to $700 to $800 on the IPS variants from Acer and Asus. The kind of G-Sync wide 21:9 aspect ratio monitors, I personally think that the image is too narrow. So I'd like to have a 32-inch version of this. I think 32 inch is the ideal size for a gaming monitor. So hopefully Dell can release that. I would consider upgrading at that point. Over the summer, I released a video called No More New Games. It was part of my Critical Take series. And I just said, I've been burned so many times picking up new games that I'm just not going to do it anymore. And obviously, since then, I've kind of gone back on that. I have picked up some new stuff. And nonetheless, I am not really buying every new release like I had been sort of 5-6 years ago. And I got a fair question on that video last week. A guy by the name of Ben Official Massive asked me if my negativity in this regard could just be an age thing. Am I just getting older? Am I getting bitter? And I've admitted that on the show, that I am somewhat of a curmudgeon, I guess, these days. So I do think age has something to do with it. He talks about, he makes the analogy that it's like all of the remakes of movies. We didn't have that when we were kids. So, for him, he definitely likes to go back to the retro stuff. And yeah, at 35, I certainly have in a certain sense, for certain games, even a stronger nostalgia than I did when starting the channel. But I also think it's an issue of creativity. It's an issue where games are so expensive to make that a lot of the AAA publishers aren't taking that many risks. So what you're getting is kind of safe, standardized content. On the other hand, you have the indie people, and the indie games are still in that area where, they're going for a specific 8 to 16-bit aesthetic because that sells. They've developed this aura about them. It's kind of, essentially a riff on what has come before. I don't think that there's a ton of innovation in that space either, and so I guess that's its own version of playing it safe. You add to that a lot of the loot box things that are coming up in the past, or that have come up in the past couple of months, and that are supposedly going to come out here in 2018, and you have a landscape that's changing, but I don't want to say that that's totally just, I'm old and I don't want to pay for a loot box. I think this is... these practices are detrimental regardless of your age. And I've always said, when I was a kid, I couldn't buy every game. Now, theoretically, I can, and I don't want to. So I think that's an industry problem as well. Surely there are certain genres like MOBAs and, the dance games and some of these things that, you see on Twitch that... I'm not that interested in, and that could be an age thing. But basically, I think innovative games would sell to a wide variety of people in a wide variety of age ranges, and we don't necessarily have that. So I would say I would chalk it up to maybe 30-40% age, and the rest is an industry that I think is in desperate need of a creative refresh and new and innovative ideas. That's going to do it for this Q&A episode. If this is something that you'd like to see me continue to do, I guess just put a question down here in the comments to these videos, and then when I get a handful, I'll come out with a new video. You can ask me anything about gaming, culture, sports, whatever. I'm a fairly opinionated person, and I probably would have something to say about a wide variety of topics. So if that's, again, something that interests you, leave a question down below, and it will appear in episode 2.